Welcome to the Coast to Coast podcast, brought to you by Play Picks and the Lines. Coming to you from the West Coast, Josh Lander, joined by my guy Nate Weitzer on the East Coast. And we are looking at a fun 2-game slate to start off this play-in game scenario here. In this one, we are going to be taking a look at the Western Conference game, the Clippers and the Timberwolves. Some best bets we like in here. Nate's got a great article up on playpicks.com as well. Some best bets and player props in there for you. And make sure to like and subscribe to that page. Check out all of the playoff games that will be bringing you this NBA playoffs. We're doing every single playoff game as well as continuing those player props with you guys as well that we look to stay hot from our regular season, especially those plus 40 units since January 1st. Also head to thelines.com. We're going to continue to monitor who's in and out of those NBA lineups all the way up until game time, as well as offer you guys the opportunity to get the best odds available with our odds checker and props tool to find out which odds makers are offering you guys the best juice out there. And as always, if you still need a FanDuel or DraftKings account, head to ftpicks.com or dkpicks.com and find those listings in your area. So just what we've got for tonight. Nate, let's jump into it.
Yeah, the Wolves -2.5 was the open. They're -3 now at home, and that total's holding pretty steady at 230.5. I don't think we're going to see much movement. There's not much injury news to watch other than D'Angelo Russell was out with an illness over the weekend, but I think he's fine. And the other playing game we have to open that slate is the Cavs +8.5 at Brooklyn. Total around 229 there. I do like the under. And we like the Nets to win. A little scared of them to cover. I think it's the same. It's kind of the opposite situation here where I would be scared of the Clippers covering 3 points. But I think if you tease them up to 7, you feel really good about this game going down to the wire. And I think that's the starting point for me is like, how do we want to tease the Clippers to make this a competitive game? But that you don't get screwed if they lose by 4 or 5 when it comes down to free throws. These are pretty evenly matched teams. I mean, we don't have a very accurate sample size because somebody key was always out when they played each other this season. The Wolves most recently kicked the crap out of the Clippers without Paul George, but they were missing both Cat and D'Angelo Russell. The Wolves, I really want to look at what they've done since the All-Star break as being very impressive. They've won 7 of their last 9 against Western Conference playoff teams. They have the 6th best offense in clutch time, 5th best net rating in clutch time since the All-Star break. Just really shorted up on both ends of the floor. No longer just a team that can outscore you, even though they lead the league in points per game. Because Patrick Beverley now healthy and kind of doing his Pat Bev thing, which is just trying to bark at the other team and rub salt in the wound. It's not like he actually has a big impact in terms of their offensive rating, defensive rating, or anything. They actually went 4-1 without him in this like span since the All-Star break and scored 6 more points per game without Pat Bev. But it's just such a factor, the toughness factor when you have a team with 0 playoff experience basically outside of him. And you take him off the Clippers, who had that toughness, a few years ago when he was their bulldog. Put him on guarding Reggie Jackson. Put Jared Vanderbilt on Paul George, and I'm all of a sudden I'm kind of worried about where the Clippers are going to find their offense. I know they've looked a lot better on that side of the ball since George came back, but he doesn't have very good numbers against Minnesota. His last 7 averaging 22.5 with a 105 offensive rating. The Clippers in general do not have a good record in clutch time. I talk about the Wolves' ability to score down the stretch. Clippers are 19th in offensive rating and 24th with a -17 net rating since the All-Star break in clutch time. And against teams above 500, they're 2-8 since March 1st. But these are all numbers that went on, during the last month, 6 weeks of a regular season where it's a marathon season. These teams knew where they were finishing because the Lakers and others just plummeted out of the bottom of this league. And they basically could, maybe you could say the Clippers were playing it slow because they're a veteran team and they knew what was coming. And the Wolves are all excited about their first successful season in a while. And they had great regular season results. And now they go up against, playoff maven and Ty Lue. It's a very uncomfortable game for me to try to pick a winner, to be honest. Even the total is a little scary. I would consider. I mean, we're talking about ways to tease the Clips up to +7.
Yeah,
and if you want to take over 226, I feel pretty good about that. I mean, the Clippers did go over in 6 of their last 9 games with a nice 125 offensive rating.
Yeah.
I mean, they're scoring all over the place. They're a very bad rebounding team, so the Wolves should be able to get some putbacks.
Yeah.
They're good. They're good 3-point shooting team, not the best at guarding the 3-point line, and Wolves can light it up from downtown. I mean, it's just the way the Wolves score. I think we got to feel good about an over versus an under, but. So that if twist my arm, I'm saying Clippers +7 and over 226 in this one.
Yeah, look, I mean, there's plenty of playoffs, play-ins, play-outs, whatever. There's plenty of games to come. Like, we don't need to just blow our wad here and start just spending units on one of the first 2 games. And this is not one where we feel a ton of value, to be honest. Now, on either side of the line or the total. At the same time, I think, like you said, there's ways to create that value and have a little bit of fun with this game, because I still think it's worth putting a bit of juice on. And I want to take the over. I really do. I definitely lean over. To your point, if you want to tease it, that's cool. But I think there's going to be some points, and you correctly corrected me when I was sort of saying, well, look, I was talking about how obviously, the Wolves on the road this season 30-11 to the over in those games. Because they just don't play a lick of defense and they just fly and shoot really well on the road. But you got to look at more recently at what's been going on with them, and they've just been going over everywhere. As you mentioned, that they score the most points in the league, and they've also been going over at home specifically, which is something that I might have been worried about when I look at a 230 spread. And you historically, you think of Ty Lue, you think of these Clippers, you think of them as a really good defensive team, which they were last year and parts of the early part of this year. But that's when they have Kawhi Leonard and Paul George on the floor at the same time, 2 of the best wing defenders in the last 10 years or so in the game. So with just one of them, I think the sample size of what they've been doing since PG came back, you might say he's not great. He's earned a name playoff P, which is not necessarily even a compliment. It's been sort of more of an insult because of his lack of ability to show up in the playoffs. Other than last season when he was playing with this exact squad that he's playing with now, where the same guys who are leading in minutes are the guys who are going to be leading in minutes right now. A team that beat the Jazz without Kawhi in those last 2 games that they had to win, and then scored 2 games off of the Suns, including one on the road. The team that almost won the championship, it went up 2-0 in the finals. So, that team consisted of Terrence Mann and Zubac and Marcus Morris Sr. And some Luke Kennard sprinkled in there, with a little bit of Amir Coffey, whatever, and a ton of Paul George, right? And that's who we're going to see now as well. Some Isaiah Hartenstein as well, sprinkled in as well. So, I think and by the way, Norman Powell is back as well for this team, who was playing really well for them in the 3 games before he got hurt, came back, got to play with Paul George a little bit more, also looked really good. I'm kind of talking myself into the Clippers right now, only because I do. And I'm also talking myself into points, because I think what they've been doing since they came back, especially since PG came back and Norman Powell's been in there as well. The only 3 times they went under were against the Pellies, Suns, and Kings. And that's because, the Pellies, Suns, and Kings scored 100, 109, and 98 points because their defense was also playing well. And the Suns and Pellies didn't really have much going on. The Kings had already started sitting everybody. Point being, they were still scoring their points. And I've been watching a couple of Clippers games and have noticed that their assists have gone up, by the way. They're 3rd in the league in assists since PG came back, and he's missed 2 of those games. It's just because there's something that gets injected into your team when you have your best player come back, and you've been playing all season like you've just been sort of sitting there treading water and feeling like you got to keep your head above because you're about to get somebody that's going to lift you up, and that's PG at this point, who's come back. And I think in a way that look, if they don't win this game, they're still making the playing game, in my opinion. But I think it is possible that Minnesota, to your point, they've been a very, very good good team since the All-Star break. They've gotten a little bit better on defense, but it's gone back to just points. So I like points no matter what, because I think that the Clippers are going to be able to score, and I think that the Wolves are going to keep their pace up and keep their ability to score as well. But like I've been saying, I kind of talk myself into potentially even hitting a money line Clippers with the over bet and just going bananas on this. Not bananas in terms of how many units I'm dropping. Like I said, this isn't one where I feel a ton of confidence. I'm just looking at some things that I feel like could happen and finding some fun ways to bet it. And right now, that would get me some pretty nice juice on my money there for a parlay money line over bet for the Clips.
Yeah, I was looking at the same thing as you're talking, and it's plus 300 for either the over or the under if you take the Clips. I mean, I think this game is a toss-up just based on what we're talking about in terms of Clippers kind of slow playing the season to a degree. And if you feel like they are going to win this game, then you could bet both the over and the under and profit if they win at plus 300. I'm not that bullish on the over because, again, like I said in the other video, it's playoff time now, and the pace is going to slow, and there's going to be a lot of stops. You left out Robert Covington as another guy on the Clips now. They're actually better than they were last year.
That's true.
Especially on defense when you throw him out there. So he's going up against his former team. You got Pat Bev hounding Reggie Jackson. I think the points could kind of grind to a halt at some point here. There's just so many unknowns when you have this Wolves team in the playoffs for the first time in years, and with completely different makeup than they were when Jimmy Butler dragged them to the playoffs. So I think the more we talk about it, the more I just say we're talking about value. The Clippers are plus 130 on the money line. You're getting plus 300 to parlay with the total, or like I said, plus 7 with whatever else you like tonight. I don't think they're going to lose that badly. There's just so many veterans out there, and Ty Lue is such a good coach for a one-off game like this against a team that's just kind of been playing with house money for a while. I don't think they're going to have that hard of a time keeping in this game. And I do kind of lean towards some unders in terms of the stars out there. So I guess we'll tune in for the player props video to see who we're talking there. But
sure.
I think we both kind of lean Clippers here just because of the playoff experience.
Yeah, I mean, we don't know. I could see Anthony Edwards, by the way, which is crazy. By the way, while you were talking too about the Clips, and as I just hyped myself up for talking for about 4 minutes about the Clippers, like I'm super pumped for this game now. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. You mentioned the players that are back in the lineups, especially for the Clippers, especially with Norman Powell, and I forgot Rocco, who he's been in and out, but he's been pretty much a staple now for the last roughly quarter of the season for that squad. I'm really gonna look at some of those player, not necessarily player props for the Clippers, but it does make me feel good about some points and good just about the value taking on the Clippers. Excited for the game. And then, I think, we don't know what we're going to get from Anthony Edwards, especially as we obviously haven't seen him in the playoffs yet or even a play-in of any kind. But would you be surprised if Anthony Edwards comes out and it just, at some point just has like a streak of scoring 20 and a quarter or something? Like, not at all. He's almost like blissfully ignorant to the pressure of playing in the playoffs, and it's just going to come out and go, ball out. So it's going to be fun. We'll see what we get from Cat. I don't want to ruin too much, like you said, about what we're going to talk about in that player props video with him and D'Lo, but we'll look at some of that in there, as that is all the time we have for you in this one. So make sure you are liked and subscribed to that page. Check out the other game video we have up for you today, and as we continue to roll on with our player props. And until we see you next, happy betting.